Hello and welcome to Garrett's Tech. Today I'm going to review a board that comes directly from Bulgaria, produced and designed by Leon and Avi. It is called the Rabbit Max, and I've been given this board with the various bits and pieces that Leon provided to me, so that I could give you a feeling of what the board can do, how well or bad has it been designed and built, and the documentation that has been provided with the code examples that are also available on GitHub. The board is ready available for purchase on Tindie, but Leon is looking into making it better and reduce the costs so that it can run on Indiegogo for a campaign and make this hobbyist project something more than just a hobby project. But without further ado, let's go and have a look at the board from up close.
As I always say, a project without good documentation is a project really worth not much. And with regards to Raspberry Pi Rabbit Max Flex, I think you can immediately tell from the website that Leon has put up that there is plenty of documentation and material to go through. So this is the website, and through the website you can immediately get on GitHub. I've already opened it here for you, and there is also a Tindie link. So on the GitHub you can find a number of examples written both in C and in Python, which can be found under this folder here and will be downloaded later on onto the Raspberry Pi. And there is also the Tindie page that I've spoken about earlier on. You can find lots of pictures of the product and the various add-ons to it. But most importantly, you start already to see how thorough the documentation is for this project. At the moment, only 3 sensors are supported: temperature and barometric pressure, temperature and humidity, and light. It comes with support for LCD display module and many other things. It's got a relay, infrared sensors. We'll go through them in order. Hopefully I will cover them all, but yes. So it's got a speaker, a button, an RGB LED. One of the aims of this board is really to ease rapid prototyping and Internet of Things. And if you go on GitHub channel and go back one step on Rabbit Max, you can see from here that clearly that's the intention that Leon is going to. There is a lot of development happening at this point in time, and I'm sure we will hear about Rabbit Max a lot more in the near future. So the last thing that it's worthwhile mentioning is this PDF, where all the documentation is really laid out in a very nice and easily readable form. It's so thorough that it goes through even electrostatic warnings, which I don't think many do, and it's just quite amazingly detailed. So what I will do is that I will go through the assembly, and then I will go through the installation of the software and the testing of the various examples. So let's move on to onto the camera on the table to show how to put together the board and how to run the code onto the main screen. With regards to the assembly, there isn't really much to be said except to follow that optional step that Leon points out in his documentation to install spacers between the board and the Raspberry Pi in order to avoid it bending and making contact to the HDMI connector when, for example, pressing the button on the board. So that was pretty much it, and we can move on to the software installation instead. So with the documentation on a side and an open shell on the other, I will just simply follow the instructions, update the operating system, and then install the I2C tools. Now we enter the configuration to enable the I2C. And also the serial interface for debugging. So now we've enabled it, and we just quickly reboot the board. And once we're back, we're just installing some other dependencies. Namely, we're going to install WiringPy, on which some of the code that Leon prepared for the examples has been made with. So the first example we're going to run, in fact it isn't an example, it's just to show that the connectivity via the serial cable is effectively working, and we're connected to port COM3 on our computer, and we can obviously access the Raspberry Pi and launch a few commands. Now we're gonna test the relay. I've connected a multimeter there to show that the relay closes once the commands are launched. And there is a version in C and one in Python through the examples that are offered. And it works really nicely with both of them. Now the next example is the buzzer. And Leon has prepared a nice Star Wars theme written for the C example. Obviously there is also a Python version of this, but it only runs the much more boring beep. But nevertheless, let's test that as well. There it is. So there is a version for C for the button, which works nicely. There is obviously a Python version for it as well. Which is also obviously working really well. For the next thing, we are going to test the onboard RGB LED. Even in this case, there is an example written in C and one written in Python. And they're both working really well, of course. Next up is the LCD display module. On this version of the board, there are some minor issues with the contrast of the LCD. That's why I had to move the camera a bit to a shallow angle. But the example works really nicely. There is only one example written in C. And I know Leon will be working on fixing the contrast issue for the next release of the board. The last is the sensor that I was provided with, the BMP180, which measures temperature and pressure. We can also use the I2C detect command to show where the sensor is located, in this case at 7.7. The last thing we're doing is testing the infrared receiver after we've followed the instructions to install the libraries that were necessary. Pointed my remote control on the infrared receiver, and yes, it works fine too. The Rabbit Max is really a nice board, and it's ready for IoT. It is a board that will need to be getting to a more mature level. There is some work that still needs to be done, and I know Leon is working really hard at making it the product he wishes to become. The documentation which is already provided and the coding that is happening behind the scenes are really promising into seeing this product becoming a really good product for the hobbyist market for the majority, but also for the educational market as well. I'm really sure that once the board has been funded via whatever Indiegogo or Kickstarter, whichever Leon is going to choose, it will receive the necessary funding and encouragement to become the board that Leon is wishing for it to become. So at this point, I think we have concluded our review. I hope you've enjoyed it as my previous ones. Please do subscribe to the channel if you like what I do. And you know, that's all folks for today, so catch you later.